Elaine Carter, the owner of store, decided to visit the store, and she had chosen not to announce her visit with fanfare, nor to bring assistants or photographers. She wanted something simpler. She wanted to walk through the store quietly, like any customer, to feel what the experience was like at ground level. She dressed in her favorite pressed slacks and a pale blue shirt, comfortable, modest, not the glittering armor of wealth, not the armor of a CEO. She wanted to blend in, to observe. To her, the luxury was not in being recognized but in seeing truth. The city was fully awake by the time she arrived. Morning. Traffic swirled outside as she stepped into the store. The marble floor gleamed like a polished lake, reflecting the crystal chandeliers above. Glass cases sparkled with jewelry. Rows of handbags sat like soldiers, each one a testament to careful craftsmanship. Elaine breathed in the faint mix of leather and perfume, her heart swelling. Her eyes drifted to a handbag near the front, the same design she had admired as a child. Back then, it had been impossibly out of reach. Now, she could purchase it, with ease, but that was not the point. The bag represented her journey. It reminded her of where she had started, of what she had endured, and of the dignity she refused to surrender. She leaned closer, smiling softly to herself, and then she felt it. The eyes. Elaine had not been in the store more than 5 minutes. Before the atmosphere shifted, she sensed it first as a faint tightening in the air, like static before a storm, that when she looked up from the display, she noticed a man watching her. Richard, the store manager. He stood near the counter, arms folded, lips pressed into a thin line. His suit was neat, though his tie sagged slightly at the knot. His expression moved from curiosity to something darker, disdain. His eyes scanned Elaine, lingering on her modest clothing, her lack of designer labels, the absence of glittering jewelry. In his mind, the calculation was instant. Not a serious customer. Not a serious customer. Elaine turned her attention back to the handbag, pretending not to notice. She had grown used to these glances over the years. Success did not erase prejudice, but Richard did not stay in the background. He approached, his shoes clicking sharply against the marble floor. His smile was thin, professional only at the surface. "Good morning," he said, his tone syrupy but strained. "Can I help you find something today?" Elaine smiled politely. "Thank you, I'm just browsing." Richard did not move. He lingered. His eyes flicked once more to her outfit, then back to her face. "You might find some better options in other stores," he said, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Shops that are more in your price range." Elaine blinked, her smile fading. She said nothing at first, hoping the moment might pass, but Richard continued. "You know," he said louder now, his voice reaching customers nearby, "we get a lot of window shoppers here, people who like to look but never buy. It wastes everyone's time." Several heads turned. A pair of women near the jewelry counter glanced in Elaine's direction. A man browsing watches shifted uncomfortably. Whispers spread like ripples across water. Elaine turned to Richard fully. Her jaw tightened but her voice remained calm. "Is that what you think I am? A window shopper?" Richard smirked, folding his arms. "I've been in this business a long time. I can tell who's serious and who isn't." The humiliation pressed against Elaine's chest like a weight, but she refused to bow beneath it. She steadied her breathing. Years of boardrooms and dismissive men had taught her how to wear composure like armor. "I don't believe it's your job to decide that," she said evenly. Richard scoffed. "It's my job to keep this store running smoothly, and that means keeping out people who don't belong." The words carried across the room, sharp as a whip. A hush fell over the store. Tanya, a young sales associate standing behind the jewelry counter, froze. Her eyes darted between Richard and Elaine, her fingers gripping the glass so tightly her knuckles blanched. She had worked under Richard long enough to know his temper. To speak up now would risk everything, yet the injustice unfolding before her eyes made her chest ache. Meanwhile, customers whispered more loudly. A woman in a cream blouse muttered to her friend, "Why doesn't she just leave?" A man frowned, shaking his head. Others reached for their phones, the glow of recording screens lighting up discreetly. Elaine's pulse quickened. She had faced worse, she had weathered harsher storms, and yet, standing there, treated as though she were an intruder in her own store, the sting was sharp. Richard stepped closer, blocking her path toward the handbags. "I think we've established this section isn't for you," he said loudly, his smirk widening. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable in the clearance section, at the back." The cruelty was deliberate. He wanted the room to laugh with him, to see her shrink. Elaine did not flinch. She tilted her head slightly, her voice steady. "And what makes you think this section isn't for me?" For the first time, Richard faltered, just for a moment. but pride restored his arrogance quickly. Let's just say I know who belongs here. A murmur ran through the crowd. Why doesn't she just leave already? Someone whispered. This is getting awkward. Another muttered. Elaine ignored them all. Her gaze stayed fixed on Richard. Loitering isn't allowed here, he said, blocking her path again. His voice carried the sharp edge of authority. If you're not buying, then it's time to move along. Elaine's voice remained calm, but the steel within it could be heard. Loitering. I did not realize that admiring merchandise qualified as loitering. Richard's smirk returned. Admiring isn't the same as buying. The words stung more than he realized. Elaine thought of her mother's voice, of the countless times they had stood outside shops just admiring because buying was impossible. For Richard, it was an insult. For Elaine, it was a memory, a reminder of the journey from scarcity to ownership. Heart pounded as she stood at the counter watching helplessly. She wanted to intervene, but fear pressed her back. She knew Richard punished employees who embarrassed him. A single wrong word could cost her job. She whispered to herself, say something, do something, but her body refused to move. Nearby, the woman in the cream blouse, Amanda, continued browsing casually, her posture relaxed, her presence entitled. She had been greeted warmly when she entered, offered champagne, treated like royalty. Elaine noticed the contrast, the hypocrisy, and then she noticed something else. Out of the corner of her eye, Elaine saw Amanda's hand move quickly, slipping a glittering necklace into her expensive handbag. The theft was smooth, practiced. Amanda adjusted her bag strap as if nothing had happened, then drifted toward another display. Elaine's gaze followed silently, her mind racing. While Richard harassed her, the real thief walked free. Richard, oblivious, leaned closer. I think it's time for you to leave, he said sharply. Now, Elaine met his eyes, calm, resolute, unshaken. I am not going anywhere. The store was no longer quiet. Whispers echoed between marble walls. Footsteps shuffled uneasily, and the faint buzz of phones recording filled the air. Elaine stood tall in the middle of it all, her composure a deliberate shield against Richard's mounting hostility. Richard's face flushed red as he pulled a phone from his pocket. If you don't leave now, I'll call the police, he barked. His voice was loud enough for every customer to hear. Elaine did not move. Maybe you should, she said calmly. Her steady tone unsettled him, but pride pushed him forward. He pressed the phone to his ear. Yes, this is the manager of Carter Luxury, he said briskly. We have a woman causing a disturbance, refusing to leave. Possibly dangerous. Send officers immediately. The distortion of truth came so easily. To him, he did not hesitate to paint her as a threat. Elaine felt anger rise, but she held it still. She had learned long ago that fury, unleashed carelessly, often worked against the person who had every right to it. Instead, she kept her voice measured, her eyes sharp, her presence unbroken, while Richard spoke. Amanda, the woman in the cream blouse, drifted toward the exit, her expensive bag now bulged slightly, a stolen necklace and bracelet resting. Inside, she moved with the casual confidence of someone convinced she would never be suspected. The entitlement was woven into every step. Elaine's eyes caught the motion again. She said nothing yet. Timing mattered. Moments later, the glass door swung open. 2 uniformed officers entered, their presence silencing the room further. One was tall, broad-shouldered, with a commanding voice. The other, a petite woman with stern eyes, followed close behind. Richard nearly ran to greet them. Officers, thank you for coming, he said, his voice dripping with false relief. He pointed toward Elaine. That's her. She's been loitering, refusing to leave, disturbing my customers. The tall officer nodded briskly. We'll take care of it. He strode toward Elaine. Ma'am, he said firmly, we're going to need you to leave the premises. Elaine's brows furrowed. Excuse me, you haven't even asked for my side of the story. The female officer stepped forward, her tone sharp. We were called here because you are causing a disturbance. You need to comply or we'll have to escort you out. Richard stood behind them, smirking. To him, this was victory. The humiliation was nearly complete. Customers whispered louder. Phones lifted higher, recording every word. Tanya stood frozen behind the counter, her pulse thundering in her ears. She wanted to scream at the officers, to tell them they were wrong, but fear kept her silent. Elaine's jaw tightened. Her calm began to crack. You're taking his word. Without question, she said, her voice rising just enough to carry. You haven't even asked what happened. The tall officer stepped closer, towering over her. Please leave now, ma'am, or we will remove you. For a moment, silence. Stretched. And then the sound of doors opening again cut through the tension. A sleek black car had pulled up outside. Two sharply dressed men entered first, their steps confident, their suits immaculate. Behind them, a tall woman in a tailored charcoal suit walked in with a calm authority that turned every head in the room. The murmurs grew louder. Who were they? Why were they here? The trio walked directly toward Elaine. The lead man stopped before her, offering a respectful nod. "Miss Carter," he said warmly, "sorry we're late. Are you ready for the walkthrough?" The words rippled through the room like a thunderclap. Richard's smirk collapsed instantly, his face drained of color. The crowd gasped, realization dawning. Phones zoomed in closer. Tanya's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. Elaine turned to Richard, her posture steady, her eyes commanding. "I'm Elaine Carter," she said clearly, her voice strong enough for everyone to hear. "The new owner of this store." The silence that followed was deafening. Richard's mouth opened and closed, his arrogance shattered. "Why, you're the owner." "That's correct," Elaine replied evenly. "And I've been watching how you run things. It has been enlightening." Before Richard could stammer another word, Elaine turned, her gaze locking on Amanda, who was just steps from the door. "And before we continue, you might want to check that customer's bag." The crowd gasped again. Every head swiveled toward Amanda. Amanda froze, her hand on the door handle, her face draining of color. "What are you talking about?" Richard asked weakly, his voice trembling. Elaine stepped forward, her tone unwavering. "I saw her slip a bracelet and a necklace into her bag. While you were busy harassing me, the real thief was walking out the door." Gasps erupted. Customers whispered furiously. Some turned their cameras toward Amanda, catching every detail. Amanda stammered, her arrogance dissolving. "This is ridiculous. I was going to pay." Elaine raised a hand, silencing her. "Save it. I saw what you did." Two security guards entered, alerted by the commotion. Elaine gestured toward Amanda. "Check her bag." Amanda clutched the handbag tighter, panic flashing across her face. "You have no right. This is an invasion of privacy." The guard stepped closer, his tone firm. "Ma'am, please, hand over the bag." Every eye in the room bore down on her. The weight of the crowd's gaze broke her resolve. Her trembling hands slowly offered the bag. The guard opened it. Inside, glittering beneath the lights, were the stolen bracelet and necklace, the tags still attached. Gasps filled the air. "She really was stealing," someone whispered. "And all this time," we thought, another muttered. Amanda's excuses tumbled out desperately. "I forgot I was going to pay." "Really?" Elaine cut her off coldly. "No, I saw exactly what you did." The guards escorted Amanda toward the back office as her protests grew weaker, swallowed by humiliation. The once confident customer was now a thief, exposed before the world. Elaine turned back to Richard. Her voice was calm, but sharp as glass. "This is the culture you've created. You target people like me, while ignoring the real criminals. That ends today." The room erupted into whispers, some customers clapping quietly, others nodding in approval. Tanya stood straighter, her eyes shining with relief. Richard's face glistened with sweat. I was just doing my job," he muttered. Elaine's gaze did not soften. "Your job is to treat every customer with respect. Instead, you chose prejudice, and you humiliated not just me, but this store and everyone in it." Richard's voice cracked. "I didn't mean." Elaine's tone sharpened. "You're fired." The word struck like a hammer. The store erupted into applause, louder this time, full of vindication. Some customers even cheered. Richard's shoulders slumped as security stepped forward. His arrogance was gone, replaced by shame and defeat. As he was escorted out, Elaine turned to the staff and customers. "This store will no longer tolerate discrimination," she declared. "From now on, we will lead with fairness, respect, and integrity." The room filled with murmurs of agreement. Tanya's eyes brimmed with tears. For the first time all day, she exhaled fully, a weight lifting from her chest. Elaine's gaze swept the room one last time. Commanding, resolute. Justice had shifted, and the tide was hers. The store's marble floor still vibrated with the echo of applause. When silence returned, Richard had been escorted out, his once smug figure reduced to a hunched shadow disappearing through the glass doors. Amanda had already been taken to the back, her expensive facade shattered by the glittering evidence of theft clinking in her stolen bag. But Elaine wasn't done. Uniformed officers still stood by the entrance, stiff and uneasy. They had sided with Richard without hesitation, treating Elaine like a criminal instead of the victim. Now, with truth laid bare, their confidence had drained. Elaine pulled her phone from her pocket. The crowd hushed again, sensing the moment was not over. She dialed, her tone calm, deliberate. "Chief Jackson." she said when the deep authoritative voice answered. I am at one of my stores. 2 of your officers responded to a call here and were ready to throw me out without hearing my side. I think you need to come down here personally. Murmurs rippled. She knows the chief of police. Someone whispered, this is bigger than I thought. Another muttered. Minutes later, a sleek black SUV rolled up to the store. A tall man stepped out, his presence commanding respect before he even entered. Chief Jackson. The officers straightened. Instinctively when he approached, his eyes swept the room before fixing on Elaine. Miss Carter, he said respectfully. I came as soon as I could. What happened here? Elaine gestured toward the 2 officers. They took the manager's word at face value, she said evenly. They didn't ask me a single question. They were prepared to remove me without justification. The chief's expression hardened. He turned sharply to his officers. Is this true? The taller officer stammered. We thought you thought. The chief's voice rose like thunder. Your job isn't to think based on assumptions. Your job is to assess fairly, to uphold the law. Did either of you ask her side of the story? The smaller officer shook her head. No, sir, Chief. Jackson's jaw tightened. Unacceptable. Both of you will report to my office first thing tomorrow morning. Disciplinary action will be taken. The officers lowered their heads, shame replacing authority. The crowd murmured approval. Phones captured every second. The chief turned back to Elaine, his voice softer now. Miss Carter, I apologize on behalf of the department. This should never have happened. Elaine nodded, her tone gracious but firm. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your quick response. I trust it will not happen again. By evening, videos of the incident flooded social media. Clips of Richard's smug taunts, Amanda's theft, the police confrontation, and Elaine's revelation as the store's owner spread across platforms with astonishing speed. Hashtags surged. Hashtag justice served. Hashtag stand with Elaine. Hashtag end prejudice. Viewers across the globe commented on Elaine's composure. She handled that with grace. This is how you stand up to discrimination. A masterclass in dignity under fire. Richard's face became a symbol of arrogance and prejudice, his reputation torn apart in hours. Employers distanced themselves. Former colleagues shared stories of his cruelty. His name became synonymous with humiliation. Amanda, once the epitome of wealthy entitlement, was now infamous. Footage of her being escorted away, her stolen jewelry revealed, trended across platforms. Her attempt to deny theft only made her fall more public, more complete. Elaine, on the other hand, became a symbol of resilience. News outlets replayed the confrontation, praising her courage and vision. In interviews, she never made it about herself alone. This isn't just about me, she said. This is about changing how we see each other. True luxury is not defined by what you can buy. True luxury is how you treat people. Dignity is the highest standard. Her words resonated far beyond the walls of her store. The next day, Elaine called a meeting with the entire staff. They gathered in the employee lounge, their faces a mix of curiosity, unease, and hope. Tanya sat near the front, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Elaine stood tall, her voice steady. This store is about more than merchandise, she began. It's about the experience we create. Luxury is not only leather and diamonds. Luxury is respect. Luxury is fairness. Luxury is inclusion. She let her words sink in before continuing. From today forward, new policies will shape this place. Every customer is welcome. Every employee is supported. Discrimination will not be tolerated. Heads nodded. Murmurs of agreement rippled across the room. Some employees looked relieved, others reflective. Tanya's eyes shone with a quiet pride. Turn toward her. Tanya, she said softly. I saw how much you care. I saw your professionalism even when you were afraid. That is the kind of leadership this store needs. Tanya blinked rapidly, tears filling her eyes. Miss Carter, she whispered, her voice trembling. Are you saying? Elaine smiled warmly. You're the new store manager. Gasps filled the room. Applause followed. Tanya covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. Thank you, she whispered through tears. I promise I won't let you down. I know you won't, Elaine said. Weeks later, long after the media frenzy had faded into other headlines, Elaine returned to the store at closing time. The lights dimmed softly, casting a warm glow over polished displays. She walked slowly to the front, where the handbag from her childhood dreams still rested in its glass case. She gazed at it quietly. It was still beautiful, still flawless, still a symbol of artistry. But for Elaine, it meant something more now. It was no longer a dream she could not touch. It was no longer just a purchase she could afford. It was a reminder A reminder of her mother's whispered promise. A reminder of the prejudice she had faced and overcome. A reminder of the dignity she had reclaimed not just for herself, but for others. Elaine smiled faintly. The handbag was no longer the prize. The true prize was the change she had sparked, the lives she had touched, the culture she had begun to reshape. She turned from the display and walked toward the exit. Her steps were steady, resolute. The store was only the beginning. The world outside still needed change, and she was ready.